Everyone, and thank you for joining us today. It is AMGC's webinar, The Value of Design, which is the second step of the Smiley Curve. And we will hand it over to Michael Sharp to kick off the event. Over to you. Thank you, Sharpie.
Many thanks, Kelly, and greetings, everyone. Today I'm in the mobile Zoom studio at Brookvale on the northern beaches of Sydney, just near Manly. This is the land of the Guringai people. And so I'd like to start with an acknowledgement to country. In the spirit of reconciliation, AMGC does acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. I can tell you that it's blue skies and the water's very warm off Manly today. It's not a bad day for a birthday, and I want to thank everyone for sending their birthday wishes on Twitter and LinkedIn and all the rest. I really appreciate that, and so far it's good, and I can say that any day with cake is a good day. Let me start by saying that we are recording this seminar, and I know many of you watch the recordings later on, so get ready for that. We will also send out a survey asking questions if you're satisfied about the seminars that we're hosting, perhaps if we could do better, or what you would like to see more of. So please get engaged with that, and we welcome your feedback. Now, don't forget to ask questions. Last time we got smashed with lots of questions, and I welcome all of that again. It really adds value to the conversation, and I invite you to be part of this conversation today. So please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen and feel free to ask any questions throughout the whole time that we're here together. We're intending to go for 1 hour. So let me introduce our speakers today. Great to have Sam Bucolo, who's the Executive Chair of the Australian Design Council. Dr. Sam Bucolo is an industrial designer with 30 years spanning industry and academia, and is currently chair of that organisation. Sam has held various executive roles embedding design practices to transform organisations and industry sectors. He's the author of the book, Are We There Yet? Insights on How to Lead by Design. Sam is an elected fellow of the Design Institute of Australia and is a Good Design Australia ambassador. Thanks for joining us, Sam.
Thank you.
We've also got Alex Birrell, who's the Executive Director and CEO of Cleanspace. Dr. Birrell joined Cleanspace in 2010 and has been the CEO of Cleanspace since 2014 and a director of the company since 2015. Alex has worked in senior management roles in the healthcare and technology sector for over 20 years. Her previous roles include at PricewaterhouseCoopers, where she worked in the healthcare advisory practice and the financial services for technology. She's also been at the Royal Prince Alfred Hospital. Alex is a previous winner of the Australian Financial Review Women of Influence Awards, and she holds a PhD, an MBA, and a Bachelor of Veterinary Medicine. Welcome, Alex. I'm glad you could join us.
Thanks very much, Michael.
So we might throw up those slides, Kelly, if that's all right. And of course, we're talking about the Smiley Curve and all the 7 steps to what it means to be an advanced manufacturer today. And so we know that manufacturing has been transforming since day dot, back in the 18th century when we saw mechanical production introduced, or Industry 1.0, the world's first industrial transformation. That evolved into the 19th century where we saw mass production, and we've talked about Henry Ford and others who implemented new ways of manufacturing. So Industry 2.0, and the way this really transformed the way the world operates in manufacturing. By the time we got around to the 20th century and the 3rd industrial revolution, you've heard me talk about when I was at school and the teacher saying, you'll probably only work a 3-day week. All these robots and the computers are going to take all the work. You'll have such an easy life. How are you all finding that? I welcome your feedback on what you think about the paperless office, because at the time we had Bill Gates put out a book called Business at the Speed of Thought, and how email and all this electronic transformation would change the operations, not just in manufacturing, but the way we live. And we certainly are seeing that transformation, aren't we? Which brings us to today, Industry 4.0, this digital transformation of manufacturing. And it's everything from R&D to design to logistics, much more than just production. It's also distribution. And I always like to talk about the sales side of things. And we're seeing much more work around services added as well. But naturally enough, today we're talking about design. and how you can add value into your business and increase the value so much more than just making stuff. So you'll see there that the smiley curve increases at the extremities there, because that's where we've seen, and our research shows that you can increase the value in your business by focusing on things like R&D, and today what we're talking about with design. So please have a look at our website. You'll see many examples of the work we've been doing and the projects that we've been co-funding. Glad to have many of you here today that we've done projects with. And you know that our new project fund is open at the moment, and we'll talk a bit about that towards the end. But Sam, I might start with you, and I'd love to get your opinion to kick things off. If you could tell us, in your view, what is design-led thinking?
No, it's a good question to kick off with. And I suppose the businesses I've worked with, often when you talk about design, you go straight to, it's a product, or, it's a service, or it might be branding for the business. More recently, it's about, how do you design something tangible inside the organization? But as we see, those firms who use design successfully, they realize design's a process, quite a structured process. So it's very much around, understanding that customer and constantly using, the design process to iterate, to really understand who that customer is, what that value is. And I suppose that thinking is not just a department, it permeates throughout the culture of the business, and constantly checking who's your customer, are we delivering value, and can we capture value from it? So design's both that noun of those things we create, but also that process, that verb.
There's a lot to it, isn't there, Sam? But we're talking about the increased value as well. So I'm sure you've seen plenty of examples where design has led to increased value in a business, not just in their capabilities, but actual bottom line.
Absolutely, and we know there's lots of studies out there who have shown that those that use design successfully will constantly outperform their competitors. Compete less on price, which is, I think, a key activity of what we're trying to do in value adding here, and really because it's actually understanding what those customer value and pain points are.
Yeah, and this is where in our last episode we talked about research and development. And so research can play a key role into, what should the designs be? What are our customers looking for? How can we create that value to keep those customers coming back? It's not just designing something new. It can be designing an existing product to make it even better, right?
Yeah, and it's constantly challenging yourself. We might get lots of marketing reports to tell us what our customers might be, but it's actually going out in the field and listening to them, talking to them, being in their world. And once you understand that, and that's just can be B2C or can also be B2B. It doesn't have to be a consumer facing. It could be anywhere in that supply chain. And truly understanding and challenging some of your thinking about, what value are we really delivering, and can we capture it as well, which is the other most important bit.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Sam, because the last one we talked about with research can include talking to your customers and asking them what are they looking for and how could we do better? What could we design something better to work for you?
And that's the first step in any design process. We would refer to as ethnography. But all that means is essentially going out and actually removing some of your assumptions, and then actually going out and questioning. What's the job to be done? What's their problem to be solved? Can we do it in a way that we can actually capture and ensure that we're the most unique in actually delivering on that? And that's design.
Yeah, great. Well, I'm so glad you could join us. We're going to have lots of questions coming through, I feel sure. But I'm glad to get your feedback because you've seen it all over the last few decades, and it's great to have your feedback. But over to you, Alex, if you wouldn't mind just telling us a bit about Cleanspace. You continue to win awards, which is terrific, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but perhaps just an overview of the company and where you find yourself, especially over the last 12 months.
Yeah, I'm going to do this two ways. I'm going to give you a bit of an idea about where we sit as a business and what we've done. And also I'm going to show you some products, which I think is really illustrative of the change and where design has had a major impact in our field. So firstly, we're a company that was founded by a group of biomedical engineers out of a medical device company called ResMed. ResMed, 30-year-old company that is a global leader in CPAP devices to treat sleep apnea. Specifically, they became experts in flow control and maintaining pressure within a mask environment. In developing the technology for Cleanspace, and the biomedical engineers developed an actual platform technology. It's dramatically different to anything else out there in the market in terms of respiratory protection. And just to give you a bit of an idea, we work in a very mature, very low innovating market. In fact, the products that we go up against really haven't changed for about 25 years.
Oh, wow.
And so it's a really old and dusty market. And unfortunately, that has led to major disadvantages for customers as well as employers in general. So we work in what's called a work health and safety space, specific or occupational health and safety. And specifically, we work in PPE. Now, almost everybody I talk to knows what PPE is, but personal protective equipment. And specifically, we do respiratory equipment. So what I'm going to do here is just give you a bit of an idea of what the market was like before Cleanspace. So if you're a large employer, you have two choices to protect your team from airborne hazards. One of them is this very simple paper mask. Looks super simple, very easy to use if you're a staff employee, and very easy to deploy if you've got 10,000 staff located in various locations. Big problem with them is they're terrible in terms of providing respiratory protection. This is the lowest level of protection certified. It's also very inconsistent for various reasons, also hideously uncomfortable, so compliance is a problem. It's actually the most expensive solution on the market. And that's because it is a consumable. So every time I use one of these, cha-ching ching, that goes into the bin. So I might use as a employee, I might use 5 to 10 of these in my shift. So that's a very expensive option, and the better quality, the more expensive, and the better they protect. So in fact, it's kind of linear in terms of your cost. And large employers know this is very problematic. We also have major issues around sustainability and the environment on these guys as well. Yeah. However, if you're a large employer, until Cleanspace, the alternative was something like this.
Whoa. Okay.
Right? Okay, so that is what's called a powered air purifying respirator, a PAPA. Okay. Provides the highest level of protection, right? It's about 2 to 4 kilos, and you can see pretty complicated, not terribly well set up for women either. So, and also if you're trying to move amongst equipment, whether that's a mine site, or sitting in a forklift or driving a truck, or if you're in an operating theatre, they're a nightmare. And so the users don't like them, and employers can't deploy them at high volume. So Cleanspace. So what Cleanspace did, it developed a PAPR system. So it's a powered air purifying system. So very high levels of protection, nice clean air on the face. But they did it in a really small, cute little device like this.
Yeah, wow, look at that. That's fantastic.
So this is our healthcare one. So we're the first respirator company to develop a healthcare respirator specifically for clinical use. And the way it works is it has a little face piece. This is one of our face masks. We have a few of them, but this is one of them. And essentially the way it works is you just click it together. Very simple system to use. It's the smart system. So we switch it on, but the system doesn't come on until it detects my breathing. So it's incredibly efficient. So I just put it, the staff just put it around the neck and click it on, and they breathe and off they go. Now, what this gives the employer suddenly is the benefit of very high protection. It's a reusable device. So we're now looking at something that's highly cost effective against this. And it's very comfortable, easy to use, very fast to don, doff, which is put on, take off in respirator terms for employees. And for us, we've developed, so we have a platform technology, we have we have several industrial models, including what's called an intrinsically safe model. And for any of the kind of chemical or coal miners out there, then they'll know exactly what we're talking about. That's essentially, it's a piece of, you have to get a certification, you have to do design modifications in order for it to allow your electronic device to be used safely in a potentially explosive environment. So we have the intrinsically safe model as well.
That's a game changer, Alex, and you've won a lot of awards. What was the latest award for?
Yeah, that was in the North American market. That was in the US for the Health and Safety Innovation Award.
There you go. That's terrific.
Also, last month we run the International Red Dot, which is actually a German design award, and I think one of the more prestigious design awards globally.
Terrific. Hey, Sam, we saw some great transformation there in product lineup, and look at the size and the scale of the product now that we've got. What about rapid prototyping? People talk about design thinking and rapid prototyping. We've got a lot of members out there that are, you know, across a diverse range of manufacturing, not just the medtech space.
Yeah.
So in general, how would you describe design-led thinking and rapid prototyping, and how that could help our manufacturing community?
Oh, look, and I think, you know, the work that Alex has showed is a brilliant example of where good design can be played. And you know, as I said earlier, design's a process that's constantly, you know, working with your customers to really understand the problem and making sure we're solving it. And rapid prototyping at its very simplest level is making sure we can put products in front of customers before we invest in tooling, before we actually invest in, you know, locking down that design, so we can remain flexible and be able to change. And rapid prototyping has been around for a while, but the level of sophistication now that you can not just do early stage prototypes, but you can go right through up into early stage tooling and actually do pre-run productions with small customers and really iron out, are we solving the right problem? Because as soon as you lock on that tooling, you've got massive capital expenditure. And so this is just one way of actually really constantly questioning, do we have that right solution?
And so there's many ways of prototyping, right? But when we talk about digital design, what's a practical platform, or what do you see most people using for digital design capabilities?
Well, look, you know, the world has, you know, moved into that CAD/CAM world, you know, for the last probably 20 odd years. And I came through that as a student, you know, 30 odd years ago. But again, that level of sophistication that, you know, you can now have virtual prototyping. It doesn't have to be physical prototyping. You can work now in very sophisticated supply chains in global markets. You don't have to wait for products to be shipped. You can really shorten that time frame of how you can actually get feedback from your customers and do these reviews. Again, they don't have to be customers. It could be in a plant. It could be in the system. And some of the work that Alex is talking about, you know, it's not just the customer using it. It's in the customers in the hospitals, or it's in the customers in various settings that you can get feedback.
So are there some websites we could direct our members to have a look at various apps or platforms that might be usable? And maybe we can list these on the platform for people for next week.
I think definitely. I think the list is actually quite long now. I don't think the challenge is anymore what technologies are out there. It's actually how do you actually embed it inside your organization. And I think, you know, we're kind of sport for choice in what we've got.
Sure.
It's just now making sure we can actually, it's not just the tool, it's how do we use the tool effectively.
Absolutely. And here's the upskill side of it, right? And so, Alex, you must employ design engineers, and I'm sure you're working with various universities and the research that we have in this country to support the design. Could you take us on a bit of a journey around the skills base at Cleanspace?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we're very fortunate to benefit from a well-established cluster of medical device companies here in Sydney. And I think that is important, developing, if you like, a critical mass of people with some experience. And also, it's not just experience of design, but as Sam and yourself, Michael, are saying, it's really understanding their design and how it plays out through its journey to end up in the hands of the customer, or the situation in which it's being used, because it's not just about how they use it, but it's also the environment that it's got to interact with. So we took on a number of industrial designers as well as biomedical engineers who fundamentally, I mean, really clever guys, obviously, but also fundamentally understood a journey or the role that design plays. And here I'd like to take us back to this definition of customer, because for us and what we've really learned and almost what we were doing from day one, fortunately, and maybe we weren't quite aware of it, but our customers were more about stakeholders along the journey of that design. So it goes to the manufacturability of the product, both through your supply chain to the assembly, you know, around cost, quality control, reliability, and speed to market. So those things, if you can do them well, and we're not even at the customer's door yet, you know, if we come back to your original slide about what it takes to be sort of competing on a global platform of manufacturing, that's where you've got to be. You've got to solve all of that. At the same time, I mean, we work in a regulated market, so we had additional constraints, if you like, around what it takes to get approved as a respiratory device, and we were doing something different. So it wasn't like we could take another device and copy it. We genuinely had to think well outside the box about how do we make our design move through those incredibly stringent approval requirements. And then we start to move into the market a lot more. So, you know, what are customers looking for? And in that respect, again, really interesting, because customers had this, before Cleanspace, had this very set view of what a respirator would do and wouldn't do. So we had to almost break the mold there and almost take them a product to challenge those boundaries. So, you know, we didn't so much ask the customers, but we were looking for their interaction and how they responded to the new technology, you know, which was around productivity, ease of use, and really it was how often they put it on. Because for safety equipment, they've got to use it. If they don't use it, it could be the safest product in the world, most protective product in the world, but they're not going to use it because they hate it. So, you know, you've got to get all of these things right. But the reality is, the more constraints you put on design, in many ways, the more creative people get. And the constraints, if you will, what's in, what's out, what you can and can't do, it generates that sort of explosion of creativity and elegance in design. So, you know, it's been an exciting journey for us. And all the way through, our biomedical engineers and industrial designers have been part of that journey, from the supply chain, you know, working with the molders, etc., through our assembly. We do our manufacturing here in Sydney, which is absolutely key to not just the rapid kind of design correction test methodology, but also, you know, you can get your design team down on the production floor. You know, we get them making the product. I mean, they learn a lot in that process, and it goes to your bottom line.
This is good.
Time. Yeah.
Well, at this time, we've got a survey that I'll put out to all of you. So the survey poll question we're going to ask you today is, do you employ, in your business, do you employ design or a design company in your manufacturing process? It'll be good to get all your feedback so that we can continue this seminar. I've got a couple of questions coming through, so please keep them coming and I'll get onto them shortly. But the poll question today is, do you employ design or a design company in your manufacturing process? And so, Sam, some of the stuff we heard talking about there with Alex would lead to the sales side too. So design must play a key role in the right packaging or the right message, how to sell that product. It's such a broad subject, isn't it?
No, absolutely. And I think, you know, making sure that your business is clear on its purpose, on that communication. So design's not just on the product that you see, it's in every bit of communications, you know, the way you actually look at your channels and distribution channels. It's about what market you want to be entering and why you want to be entering it. So it's actually designing the entire organization or the business model in that sense.
Well, that's very broad when you start talking that way.
But it has to be, because, you know, people just don't buy the product, they actually buy that purpose of what you're actually working within. So we see a lot of designers, you know, have really making sure that they're interjected into the business at the right time, because they like asking lots of these questions. And sometimes, you know, your sales channel may not be the right one. Going through a distributor may not be the right one, or going for a certain sort of packaging may not be the best. You know, your consumers might be your customers, or going direct. There's lots of ways designers can actually help you just see the problem differently.
Yeah, good point. So we should close off the poll now and get our results here. Thanks to everyone for your feedback. Oh, so 53% are currently using design or a design company in their manufacturing process, which is very positive. But clearly there's a lot more we could be doing. So one of the things I always like to say to you all, and you've all heard me talk about this, but collaboration is a key driver. And the fact that you're here listening to this today shows that you're interested in looking at what you could do in your business. We've got some of the best research minds in Australia in our great universities. And a lot of the time, it's such a thrill to be able to connect our great researchers to industry and see what we can do together. So there's some great opportunities. But Sam, they were good responses. I'm wondering, do you have any advice or guidance on how an SME today could reach out to a design firm or find the right design partner? How can a company go about investing in design when they're currently not doing that right now?
I don't know. And I was very encouraged by those results, saying 53% of firms use design. I think if we asked that you know, a couple of years ago, it'd be a much lower number. Mm-hmm. So that's very encouraging. But yeah, as you say, we can do more. And look, a practical way of reaching out to designers. In Australia, we're very lucky. We've got this world-class design community. They're constantly punching above their weight in global awards, really good education programs. Often I think what we see, Bo, is we engage designers way too late in the problem. Once it's actually close to market, or they're looking to actually, either just, put some brand on it or some styling on it. And you miss the real value creation from that. So bringing your designer in right at that day one, and to really help you understand what's the problem I'm solving. So I would see, not designers at cost. It's something we have to do. It's actually as critical to be successful in your business.
Yeah.
So as soon as you can, starting to think about something, bring them in and be open to be challenged.
Oh, very good. And Alex, if we're talking about manufacturing in general across the board, so not just medtech devices, but in a practical way, what have you seen as some good models around engaging with the right design firm or find the right staff workforce?
Yeah, look, I think it starts with the individual fit. I think, there is a very broad range of design and designers, design experience. And I'll just pick up on what Sam was saying about what problem you're trying to solve. I think that's where you really need to probably talk to a number of people, either to understand the fit, because once you find it, they'll inherently understand what you're trying to achieve. And they'll be introducing ideas and thoughts and a direction that you may not have conceived of yourself as a business, because you're not currently doing it, right? You're not currently in that kind of design laneway. And that's really where you start to open up your mind to the potential. And of course, a designer can't design, good and creative ideas or concepts without that valuable business input, whether it be market input, customer input, regulatory input. They need that feedback in order to be able to develop the different design concepts. But I guess, the most important thing is that they're introducing new ideas to that business in order to do it. So I'd say it's definitely genuinely about a kind of a fit with the business, a fit with experience, and a like-minded thinking, if you like.
Yeah, no, that's good feedback.
Opportunity.
We've got a couple of questions here now. So Sam, I'm going to throw this one to you. How could you start to introduce a culture of design and to get the staff on board to take feedback? So I guess it's staff engagement and wanting to get involved with design more.
No, look, and that's a question I hear a lot inside firms. Those the coalface can often say we need design here, and often it gets lost inside the business, or by the time you start to actually put some requisition in, oh, that's too expensive, we can't afford that. So some of the simple tools that I've seen work is most organizations have a product or something they're in the market already. Bring your designer in and just do a critique and actually take it out to market and actually let a designer do a critique and actually say, well, what's your customers actually saying about this? Yes. So don't rely on a market research firm or something along those lines, or do it yourself. Let someone else actually do that intervention. And you'll see quite quickly some of the gaps you might be missing. The other one inside your business, I see a lot of firms who are always busy. We've got lots of innovation happening. But you ask the basic question, well, which one's actually delivering value for your customers? Can you tell me? Yeah. And often sometimes you get lost. There's this busyness of doing things versus actually these are impactful.
That's a really good point, Sam. And to you, Alex, there must be a controlled plan around design. It's all well and good to have new ideas, but there must be a process that you have at Cleanspace that others could model around, what's best practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we think about design and innovation and new product development, not new product, but let's call it product development, in three categories. And look, I think if anyone's worked in business long enough, they'll know these. But one of them we call sort of blue sky thinking. So it's generally very high risk, has a longer time frame, obviously can chew up more cost. It's balanced against a portfolio approach to other developments. So we have new products coming through, but they're sort of more incremental innovation. So there'll be new products for sure, but they'll be based off, existing products that we already have or knowledge that we already have. And then there's a third one we call sustaining engineering, which is it's still innovation, it's still design, but you're actually improving on what you've got. So it's then that sort of next level to incrementation. So, shorter timelines, it's actually a lot faster. to Sam's point about value for customer, you can actually within weeks or months, you can get that value to customer really quickly. Whereas if you go back to the kind of blue sky, you may never get there, right? But you do have to try, because off that blue sky research, off that blue sky development, you might spark a whole bunch of new learning, new development, new knowledge that then feeds back into your incremental. So we look at that in 3 ways, and we try and balance that across. You know, we can't put all our eggs in the one basket, being high risk, long time frames, but you know, wow, this product's going to just knock the market out of the ballpark, because you know there's a high chance it might not happen. That's the whole point of high risk, right? And then you know, we can't just do the kind of, you know, just there's the improving piece, because the technology starts to get stale. So you always have to challenge and manage that portfolio across the board.
That brings us to another question I've got here, Alex, and I'll point it to you, which is, what would be your return on investment with design? And do you measure this as a business? And I'm going to throw that to you as well, Sam, after Alex, to see, is there an industry benchmark around what sort of ROI should be with design? To you, Alex?
It's not easy to just simply answer that question with a number, but let me break it down for you. So we look at our cost of goods, and we have a target that we like to sort of work towards. And design and redesign and incremental and design of new products are helping us get to that target in terms of our cost of goods. So that's a really important one for any business. It goes to, you know, your bottom line. And so we have a definite target around that. And that can be played out, as I said, through the existing product line, but also new products as they come through. And it may be removing parts. You know, design is not always about adding parts. It could be about removing parts or using different materials and things like that.
That's a very good point. Yeah, taking some parts away and making it more compact and more usable.
And in fact, that's better for manufacturing, because less to assemble, and it may well be better for the customer as well. It might be lighter, it might be easier to use, might be more intuitive. There's a whole bunch of things in there that might have some ongoing benefits.
Okay.
So, and then we do look at our market, you know, so if we're looking at new markets, for example, we don't have the product to go and enter successfully to compete in those markets, then we do have to develop a new product to get into that market. So if you like, there's an ROI on that, depending on the size of the market, bringing in new customers. We also have a model that, if you like, there's core equipment, but there's a lot of accessories and consumables off that. And again, we're looking, you know, we're constantly looking at, well, if that new accessory was there, you know, could that increase our revenue around that particular customer base or that existing market? So we look at our ROI very, if you like, very clearly or very succinctly around that.
We see that with the iPhone, and I know with my own phone, I'm always losing the phone charger. So as an accessory, I'm sure that Apple earn a lot of money from me buying new phone chargers all the time. So.
That's an old trick.
But back to you. So Alex, I'm going to come back to you shortly and ask about any good books that our members could be looking for, or perhaps a good podcast that you listen to in general that we could inspire our members. I'll come back to you on that one, give you some time. But to Sam, about an industry benchmark around design, any feedback on that?
No, look, there's some. Unfortunately, we don't have much in Australia that we have. But so I often refer to the UK Design Council, who've done a fair bit of work over the last probably 10 odd years on the value of design. And one of the stats they use, for every £100 a design alert business spends, they increase turnover by £225. So you can actually start to get some hard numbers there on large, they're SME firms. They're not large firms often. So they're quite tangible, saying you will get a return on investment by actually investing in design strategically within your business. Those businesses, you know, don't compete on cost anymore. They're actually competing on their value add. You know, they're increasing their market share, you know, by 6 or 7%.
Big numbers.
Yep, 6 or 7%. Yep. You know, those larger businesses, you know, if they're on share markets, you know, they'll outperform their share market by a factor 2 to 1. They're from the Design Management Institute in the US. So design over time has really shown, invest it correctly will add value to your business and make it far more resilient and robust in times of growth and actually in decline.
And this is what we're looking for, to build a more resilient business here today in Australia. That's the opportunity, and we're seeing more and more great examples of that. Sam, I've got another question here for you, which is, what is the average time from design to commercial?
Look, that's a hard one, depending on the industry you're in, the scope of, whether it be incremental or, new product development. But I'll answer it in a different way, because a lot of times what designers might do inside the business is actually help you stop things. So design's not just about creating new things. So often there's some parts in your business that you can actually quickly see as a designer and saying, it's actually not adding value. It's not aligned to your business model or to your purpose. So you can get some very quick wins by actually just stopping certain things, which allows you some capital to actually free up and actually go into new markets.
We like capital. So we hear a lot about innovation too, Sam, but what is bad design? Do you have any feedback on that?
Oh, look, bad design, I think, goes out and actually fundamentally, you're either trying to be another Me Too, you're copying, you don't really have that clear understanding of what your customer is. It's adding no real value. It hasn't taken a broader view about what's the impact it's going to be for the customer, for the environment, for society. And we see a fair bit of that really not thoughtful at all. So design does not have to be luxury or expensive. It just has to be well considered.
Yeah, well considered, and have a willing customer base, right?
Absolutely, and that customer can be, quite, who understands the high-end value, or it could just be actually getting something done that can't be solved.
Do you know of any products that have been designed for a certain customer, but by the time they've got out to market, it actually goes to a broader customer range?
I'm trying to think of one, but that's so people start to see those needs and go, I didn't see that. And again, you often talk about these latent needs.
Yes.
Sometimes you can't see what customers actually see until they have it in their hands. Going back to the rapid prototyping question, why it's so important.
So I guess this customer feedback becomes even more important, because then you can go to a broader audience and potentially more income.
And I think this is, with businesses, as you often are, you're constantly being open to those opportunities, but you just don't throw it into market and thinking, oh yeah, they'll get this. You really have to have a considered approach to doing that.
We've got some of our members now that are transitioning into the space industry. Their traditional business is in engineering and fabrication, and they've been looking at opportunities for defence. They're now looking at this exciting opportunity and growing. There's growing funding available for the space sector in Australia. But the design side of things means that, you might have an underwater robotic arm that can operate submarinally, but you're now looking at outer space, and there's different things that need to operate in that environment, radiation just being one of them. So there's crossover where it is a good design could be used in a different environment altogether, but design will continue to play a role to make that product operate in that new environment.
Yeah, look, I think, absolutely, that there are opportunities that should be pursued. The call out I would make is don't make the assumption they're the same industries. They have their own nuances, they have their own challenges, they have their own regulations, and constantly, calling that out up front by just actually, and making sure you're actually building that in your own capability inside your organizations.
So I think one of the things I'm hearing from both you and Alex is about engaging with your customers is vital. Getting that feedback. How is the design working? Are you happy with the product? So if you're in manufacturing today, and I'm glad you could all join us, and we've got some more questions here, which I'll get to shortly, but it seems vital from what we're hearing today that it's important to talk to your customers and get that valuable feedback to enhance the next design for the next product. But Alex, I talked to you about podcasts and any good books that some of our members might reach out to. What's your go-to?
We often get compared to iPhone in terms of, the respiratory protection world. So I'd have to say Steve Jobs in terms of that kind of visionary. So it's Life by Design.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh,
and I don't have much time for podcasts just in general at the moment, but there are plenty out there. There's some really good places. And look, to be honest, I'm probably not the right person to ask, but our design team would have a better handle. Probably Sam would have a better handle of that.
You've had a busy year, but I guess a question to you on that side of things is, when you compare to the iPhone, we know that within less than 2 years there'll be another model of the iPhone, and they get that customer feedback to design the next iteration and how that could be better. And we know that people line up out the front of their Apple stores, sometimes for up to a week, waiting to get the new model iPhone. What's the timing around the products in your business, and how how can you put a figure on that to design the next iteration of the face mask? Is there a rule of thumb? Or...
Yeah, look, coming back to the timing for new design, how long does it take to get a new design out there? With our certifications, we generally look to put a new product out every 2 to 3 years. We're just a little bit behind because of COVID this time, but certainly that's our time frame sort of sits around that 2 to 3 year point. But every year we put out new products in terms of the consumables, in terms of the accessories, in terms of the actual face piece. So we're always refreshing the range, whether it's to open up new markets, extend our market application, or most importantly, in addressing a customer demand. I would love to use it, but I need to have this in this particular area. So for us, it's kind of, we're putting out new products every year, but for those kind of big, like you said, the iPhone style launch, that would be every 2 to 3 years.
And so with a product like the Cleanspace mask, there must be things where you could add in the data that you could receive. So using smart sensors could be another part of design, adding value to the product.
Yeah, that's right. So the Cleanspace Halo is actually the first respirator to have a Bluetooth in it. So it's data enabled, which allows us to collect point of use data, not just on the equipment, but of course on how it's used.
Okay, this is good. And so we certainly have organisations like the New South Wales Smart Sensing Network and others all around the country with our great universities, where we, feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'm happy to connect all of you to the right people and try and help you on this journey to design a better product or design something new. But Sam, any books or podcasts that you could recommend?
Look, the one I wrote, but which is about SMEs adopting design. That's where it came from.
And we will put a link to your book after this, so that'll be good.
Tongue in cheek there, but there are a lot of good resources out there. I would encourage people to look at the Good Design Australia website for just good examples of businesses that have used design, not just product, but as we were talking about before, interaction design, experience designs. These are all Australian manufacturers who are looking at new ways of actually capturing value or creating value. Yep. And this field of industrial interaction and experience design has opened up lots of opportunities to take your product outside of a physical into a virtual world, to tap into some new customer bases, to look at new sources of revenue within that.
Sam, could I add to that? I'd also recommend people go and have a look at their powerhouse and also their broader museums at the Museum of Applied Arts and Sciences, because they are a specialist in really, really highlighting design, good design in a myriad of different sectors and facets, all the way through from clothing design. And I think the analogy is beautiful, or at least the connection, all the way through to medical device and trains, etc. When you see it under one roof, if you see it positioned and connected in this way, you understand how critical design really is into people's experience of the product, their engagement, their, even the availability of that product in their hands, or, to be able to use. And so when you see it like that, presented in that way, and all the little facets around that, it's genuinely a beautiful experience. So Museum of Applied Arts, the powerhouse.
I can agree with that too, Alex. That's a good point, because there's nothing like seeing it and getting that inspiration as well, right? And we've got plenty of projects that we've been doing at AMGC, and your comments are timely because we've got Alfredo Martinez-Cole has asked a question, and Alfredo's with UTS, and one of our latest projects is with a company called TechFit, who have engaged with UTS on the design side of things to develop a new product where I can basically scan my body, and they're developing a 3D printer where they can build a digital twin of myself, or a wax model of my body after I've scanned it, and then fit clothing to that model. So that means that I don't no longer have to go into a store. I could manufacture suits and the like anywhere in the world from an exact digital copy of that scan. It's quite amazing. But Alfredo has joined us, and good to hear from you, mate. The question is, would either of your companies be open to design challenges to engage the universities and research institutions? And I guess I would start with you, Sam, and ask, have you seen some good things around design challenges, and can you tell us a bit about that?
No, design challenges are a great way to stimulate thinking. And I said earlier, we have some of the best design schools I've seen in the world. Really, we're sport for choice. And you've got a lot of minds who are able to put their attention and focus onto these big wicked problems that often businesses can't look at. I think where challenges really work is where you've got this quite a large problem. So rather than a tactical problem, open up where you may want to investigate some fresh thinking, and let designers really challenge, as design students challenge where you are, and that will fast track what is possible. When I was working with universities, a lot of times we did these design projects, and what it allowed us to do was then stimulate, well, there's a bit of research that you could actually plug into here. You would never have known that relationship, or there's an entity you'd be able to collaborate with, because you just see the problem from a different perspective.
Yeah, and quite often that can be the key, right? That can unlock that new thought bubble, that new concept, engage with staff.
Yeah, you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, this is good. There's a lot of opportunity out there. And for you, Alex, have you been involved with design challenges? Have you got any feedback on what that could be?
I haven't with Cleanspace, but I have previously. I've been involved in a lot of design competitions, also software design competitions as well. So yes, they're particularly, almost the shorter they are, the more explosive in terms of the creativity. So that kind of almost speed design, speed dating, speed design. I think it's just a beautiful forum for people to come together. Like, I love the team design work. I think that sort of, when you see that creative energy bouncing around in the team, I think it's brilliant, and how they have to collaborate, because design really is a collaboration. And I think that's been a common theme through the discussion today. And so when you bring that together in a very short time frame, the results are just so surprising and delightful.
Yeah. If there's one bit I'd just like to build on that, and I think there's lots of talk around design thinking. I think these design challenges are great to open up ideas, but designers like nothing more than actually design doing. Also, then they like to execute. How do we get that product to market? Mm-hmm. And I think just challenges and then execution just has to be balanced. And I think that's the beauty of actually, you can fast track something, but then let's not forget that second step. Design's not just about actually asking the what ifs. It's about actually then focusing on, let's actually follow it right through into execution.
Yeah. I'm interested, Sam, in your feedback about simplification. And, design can be so broad, but it's important to have the right design to match the cost and the expectations of the customer. One of our projects has been with a company called Dresden Vision, which have used recycled plastics to make prescription eyewear. They're growing all the time. They now have stores over in Canada. They're exporting this technology. People love the glasses. They now produce sunglasses, high quality frames with high quality lenses. So they've come up with this one design that everyone's wanting to buy. So rather than having a broad base of designs and trying to complicate things, they've actually simplified that process. How important is that?
Oh, absolutely. I think it comes back down to, if you, and again, I don't know the process that they use, but I would assume, they didn't start out by actually designing a new set of glasses. They would have stood back and said, well, what's the problem we're trying to solve? And it's about, that pain point around waiting for glasses, having to actually go, I don't want all this choice. I want something that I can take away straight away. And that's the design problem. Now that will actually follow through the business model around that. And you know what? We can make a great design off a glass, new form of glasses, with materials that, is sustainable. And we can actually then compete, and no one can actually then really copy us, because that's our business model.
Yeah. And so same for you, Alex. I mean, the simpler that you can make a design, that must help in the manufacturing process and actually putting a product together to go to market. So what we say is we much rather see Australian manufacturers competing on value, not on cost. So it's about incorporating the right design into the product to put a right price to market to grow your business.
Yeah, we always say once you're competing on price, it's a race to the bottom. So there's no sustainability in that. And when you look at markets like Germany, they're big believers in maintaining markets. So they don't like cost cutting, they don't like discounting. It's all about continued improvement to benefit the industry as a whole, and the industry includes the customers using those products.
Yeah. We've got another question here, which is, can you protect your designs with IP? So I'm sure that's a very broad question, Sam, when it comes to intellectual property. But what are some simple ways that people can protect their designs?
And IP Australia has some very good resources for manufacturers on how you can protect design. So beyond patents, you can actually protect the either your trademark or around the actual look and feel or look of the product as well, around a registered design. And then there's ways of doing that, and then there's other ways of actually protecting it as well. But they've got some good resources of what you need to look at, but they're also doing some reviews at the moment of how do you actually better protect this. So I'd really encourage people to look at IP Australia.
Oh, very good. And for you, Alex, do you have any recommendations around intellectual property? I'm sure it's a complex subject, especially in the medtech space.
Absolutely. Look, I think you have to really understand your design, whether, you know, and what part of it, because there's more than just this sort of patents and trademarks and things. Like, so that IP protection is a broader sphere that you need to operate in. So we take, again, we take a kind of a holistic approach. Yes, we use patent lawyers. Yes, we use trademarks, etc., to protect our IP in the markets that we operate in. Also the markets that we manufacture in. So manufacture being supply chains coming through. So we export through, if you like. And then the other thing, of course, is what is the know-how? How do you protect that? And this is where really doing local design and manufacturing is so critical to protecting your intellectual property. You know, kind of creating, if you like, that segmentation across your supply chain, and also being able to house a lot of the intellectual property and how it works and how we kind of do that really secret squirrel magic stuff, whether it's be software or, you know, specifically how that piece of that little part goes into that little part there. That all has to be very tightly controlled. And, you know, you can have, you know, the best patent lawyers in the world, the best patents, the best trademarks, it may well not protect you. You know, by the time you're kind of defending it, you're in a court for several years. So you need to look at, you know, what your business operations, your workflow are, and also the controls around that. And now I guess the added one that's really come up in the last few years, which is cybersecurity. How you protect all of that and your design in that context.
Yeah, it's becoming a complex world, isn't it? So I think the ability to reach out to leaders like yourselves is really important to manufacturing in Australia. I'm really glad that you can both join us today because your feedback is valuable. Yeah. We're seeing this transformation right across Australia now with Industry 4.0, of course. It's a global transformation underway, but in so many ways with the projects that we've been co-funding at AMGC, we're seeing the capabilities increase in Australia today. So that's the benefits.
Could I just say, Michael, just on that last point, and I think it's a really important one for the SME market or people designing, is we often see people get very enthusiastic about their designs and inventions, and they want to talk to lots of people about it. That's where they really need to be super careful. So I just say they just need to even think before they start opening their mouth or putting down drawings on you know, on placemats. They should be very careful about their protection at that point.
Yeah, that's a good example. We've put a link to IP Australia in the chat box there, so have a look at that website as Sam suggested. But Sam, when we're talking about rapid prototyping and digital and the rapid speed that we can do things today, it's important to remember to protect yourself.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And I think this is always the balance of, you know, wanting to get good feedback on your idea versus actually giving away ideas. And there's a very good, you know, ways, again, designers can help you walk through those issues and making sure you're getting the best without actually giving away your intellectual property.
Great. I'm so glad you could both join us. So we've got some slides we'll pull up now to just recap what we've talked about today. But you can see that, again, that manufacturing is so much more than just production. So today we've talked about design, which is the second step in our smiley curve, the manufacturing value chain. So you can increase the value in your business by focusing not just on R&D, but now with design as well. And we've got some great business leaders here that have shared their thoughts with us today. So digital design and rapid prototyping lead to lower product development costs, but also greater product customization opportunities for manufacturers. For you out there today, this is the opportunity. Design strategies can streamline the production process. So it's about talking with your team and engaging in best practice, therefore creating a more efficient manufacturing process, which can help control the cost side. Designing an innovative and customized product increases your value differentiation from the competition. So what can set you apart and what can create a wider customer base for you, make your business more resilient. We heard both our speakers talk about that. And manufacturers can collaborate with design companies or other manufacturers to employ design in their manufacturing value chain. We've heard some great examples around that today, and I'll always remind you about our great universities as well. I'll always say that you can feel free to reach out to us at any time at AMGC. So feel free to join us for our upcoming seminars where we'll continue this 7 steps of the value chain in manufacturing. The dates are there and you can register on the website. And if you're not already a member of AMGC, can I encourage you to join? Just go to the website. You'll see all our other members, and we're growing rapidly right across Australia, from companies big and small. We've got more and more startups getting engaged now, particularly in the space industry. It's an exciting time to be in manufacturing, that's for sure. It's always good for me to get out and about and walk the factory floors and come and meet with you at your business and learn more about how we can assist you. So feel free to reach out. In the coming weeks, I'll be back in Tasmania and heading to South Australia in mid-May. So feel free to reach out, and if I can come and visit you, I'm more than happy to do so. Please check out the Manufacturing Academy, where we've got business leaders sharing their processes today on how they're shifting their business and creating jobs and growth for the benefit of their company right now. These are people just like yourselves that have shared what they're doing using AMGC research to make a difference in their business right now. So log in and learn at the Manufacturing Academy. And don't forget the COVID Manufacturing Response Register. It continues to grow. It's a completely free service, and you can be connected with manufacturers in Australia that are producing medical PPE for your business now. If you are a provider of those goods, you can also register there for free and be connected to our. So again, thank you to our speakers for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again in a fortnight. Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, and I look forward to talking to you. Have a great day.